Okay, good morning, everybody. This is TX21 Indivisible. We are having our online virtual meeting with Chip Roy's district office, but it's totally virtual because there's nobody from Chip Roy there. Chip Roy's office there, we've been actually banned, so that's just the situation. We're persona non grata, I guess, as considered by Chip Roy and his staff. So I'll just begin with my letter. I've got a kind of a rant, but we'll see how it goes. Congressman Roy, as if we'd not enough chaos and dysfunction in our country right now, Donald Trump chooses this moment to ask the Supreme Court to strike down the ACA completely. This will throw an estimated 20 million people off their health care, leaving them with no medical coverage and no protections from pre-existing conditions, such as COVID-19. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have no replacement plan, and this is being done at a time when we have 40 million people unemployed, 2.5 million people have been infected with coronavirus, 125,000 who have died. Europe, who was at one time in a more precarious situation than the US, is substantially recovered from the coronavirus epidemic, and their case numbers are now declining sharply. However, the current trends in the US are now going in the wrong direction for all but a few states, and our attempts to open up are now being reversed in many states. Our economy is on life support, posting a 5% negative GDP for Q1, and predictions that the second quarter will be significantly worse, despite the trillions of dollars in fiscal stimulus that have been injected into it. Money alone cannot fix our current crisis. There can be no true recovery for our economy until the coronavirus pandemic is under control. And there are no signs that this will happen anytime soon. Adding to the health and financial woes that we have now the worst racial unrest in our country since the late 1960s, with a month of protesting in the streets across America in support of Black Lives Matter movement. In response, Donald Trump reverts to heavy-handed tactics and immigration bans as his solution to our racial and economic woes. He fails to recognize any systemic racial bias in America, and his immigration ban fails to realize that most of the high-tech jobs and companies in America owe their success to immigrants. Meanwhile, it's ironic that while Europe opens up to many countries around the world, Americans are still banned from travel there due to our uncontrolled coronavirus pandemic. It is as if Donald Trump is purposely on a mission to destroy our country. Is this Donald Trump's re-election strategy? If his re-election bid goes down as a big flop, which is looking more and more likely every day, then he will take the whole country with him. This is a scorched earth retreat strategy of defeated tyrants. And Donald Trump is burning all the bridges behind him and the American people along the way. How can you, Congressman Roy, in all honesty to yourself, your family, your faith, continue to support Donald Trump? He drove 6 of his businesses into bankruptcy and ruin. Now he is doing the same to the United States. His primary concern is always Donald Trump, not the United States of America. I truly fear if Donald Trump is reelected in November 2020, he will pose an existential threat to the America I became a citizen of in 1999. Fortunately, I have great faith in the eventual wisdom of the American people, if not the wisdom of the Republican Party. And it looks very much like Donald Trump and the Republican Congress is headed for a monumental defeat in November. So I suggest you pack your bags, Mr. Roy. It's time to say goodbye, Mr. Chip, an engaged constituent in TX21 who refuses to go away.
Great letter.
Next one.
Okay. Reprehensible Roy. With you, things just don't add up. You always use lofty rhetoric that professes support for faith, righteousness, and apple pie. Yet in the real world, those words and corresponding actions always seem to fall short of the mark. Specifically as regards racism, why is it that so many of the things that you're associated with seem to be tinged to one degree or another with racism? Here are some examples. Number one, why are you such a proud member of the modern Republican Party, which is largely defined by racism? From Dixiecrat and arch segregationist Strom Thurmond of the late 1940s to Richard Nixon's infamous Southern strategy to Ronald Reagan giving racists a respectability as conservatives, the GOP has long since parted ways with Abraham Lincoln. In fact, that 40-year transition period represented the greatest realignment of political parties in American history. Now we have a GOP president who doesn't even pretend to disguise his racism. As but one example, this past weekend, he retweeted a video of a man shouting "Black Power." Number two, moreover, as a Republican, I've never heard you once condemn the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, and the GOP voter suppression which quickly followed, aimed directly at people of color, the poor, the disabled, and others. Number three, also, while we all condemn the violent protests that erupted after the murder of George Floyd, the vast majority of protests have been peaceful, including a number of them in small rural Texas towns, in other words, red country. Nevertheless, your emphasis always seems to be heavy on the side of law and order rather than in fighting against injustice. While your worldview always reads full when it comes to freedom and liberty, it consistently runs on empty when it comes to justice. Number four, in addition, you remain silent both as a man of faith and as the U.S. representative when Trump authorized armed force to clear out a peaceful rally close to the White House just so he could stage a blasphemous photo op in front of a church while holding a Bible. Where was your religious outrage at this desecration and your constitutional outrage at protesters being denied their right to peacefully assemble? Number five, and why haven't I heard you weigh in on the need to remove Confederate statues, all of which represent the glorification of slavery and later on Jim Crow? I speak as one who is descended from or related to Confederate soldiers on both sides of my family. I know that the cause of perpetuating slavery for which they fought was not a just one. In a related area, Mississippi's Republican Speaker of the House pointed to his religious faith in supporting the removal of the Confederate battle flag from that state's flag. Why has your faith not so motivated you to urge Texas state officials to remove Confederate statues and paintings from our state capital and to end voter suppression? And isn't it ironic, Representative Roy, that the greatest impediment to fighting racism today isn't the Democratic Party of old, but the modern-day incarnation of the party of Lincoln? Number six, also, I happen to believe that the vast majority of our law enforcement individuals are good, decent, and honorable people, yet it is self-evident that they are tasked to do far more than they are trained for, and that significant policing reforms need to be passed. Yet, when you had a chance to do something positive in that regard, you voted against H.R. 7120, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. Maybe it was because it was written by House Democrats. So much for your recent toe dip into bipartisanship. Or maybe it's because it had that word justice in its title, which reminds me, did you not take Justice 101 when you were in law school? Number seven, drilling down into your June 23rd dog whistle to Attorney General William Barr in support of law and order, it's obvious that you're really more interested in stirring the pot of racial division than trying to heal it. One has to look no further than one of the co-signers of your letter, U.S. Representative Steve Keen, who is an unapologetic racist that even House GOP leaders, no strangers to dog whistles themselves, had to distance themselves from. For them, whistles are fine, but blaring it from a microphone for all to hear is another matter. Such hypocrisy. Number eight, as far as I know, you remain silent as Trump planned for and held his false Oklahoma rally 100 years ago. Hundreds of blacks were massacred on race riot. And on top of that, his rally was originally planned for Juneteenth, which commemorates the freeing of African American slaves. Trump's racial insensitivity knows no bounds, and yet you remain silent. Number nine, And speaking of Juneteenth, you posted a celebration of it on your campaign Facebook page, which I commend you for. But in light of the above, why did it have such a feeling of insincerity to it? Number 10. Then there are Trump's recent coronavirus, quote unquote, Kung flu, and quote unquote, China plague, racial slurs against Asian Americans, which are a little different than you calling it the Wuhan virus. Representative White, do you ever pause for self-reflection? If not, perhaps now is the time to do so. Also, I'm sure you've heard that old saying about being known by the company you keep, and well, I'll just leave it there. For a representative who seeks to unite rather than to divide, Stephen Shackelford. P.S. In reference to racism, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once said that the arc of history is long, but that it ends towards justice. But for you, Representative Roy, sadly, you fell off the arc somewhere in the 19th century. But we're not about to let your ball and chain drag us back. That's it.
Thanks, Steve. The sound was a little crackly there. Was that the way everybody saw it or heard it?
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
I don't know why. Now you sound fine. I don't know. Okay, who'd like to go next?
Well, I can go. Mine's a little shorter. You want to hear it? Yeah, okay. Did I unmute? Yes. To Chip Roy. On your website, you state, as your congressman, Chip Roy fights to stand with our military service members by giving them a clearly defined mission, providing them the tools needed for victory, and supporting them once they return home. On this site, I read through 30 pages of news items you posted, newspaper articles about you, your opinions about the virus, the impeachment, the Mexican border, the Austin homeless people, healthcare, endless opinions, but nothing about the one for which I was searching. Under the Issues tab, I found one called Strengthen Military, Support Veterans. In it, you state you want them to have the tools and the rules of engagement that permit them to succeed in the battlefield. In addition, our service members deserve members of Congress who will unequivocally support them and have their back. Such a strong word, unequivocal. I also read your endless Twitters. In all of your verbiage, I never read one statement about expressing your opinion about your president's betrayal of the battleground soldiers as he silently permitted his friend Putin to pay extra money for dead American soldiers. Okay, I lost my place. I've heard the White House spokespeople explain that there wasn't enough consensus to tell Trump about Putin's bounty for killing American soldiers. I've read that Senator Cornyn thinks Trump gets so much information he just can't remember everything. Yet from you, nothing is heard. So please, tell me what you think about the commander-in-chief of the military, your party leader, betraying the very group of service people you think deserve a Congress that has their back. Tell me what you think about Senator Cornyn saying the commander-in-chief forgot about his friend Putin paying money for dead American soldiers. Tell me your unequivocal thoughts about Trump and his friend Putin and dead American soldiers. Shirley, a person who's waiting to vote.
That's great. I think if you could get that down to 150 words, it would be a great letter
it
to the
would.
editor.
Yeah,
Really?
it would.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, it really would. Just
Okay.
just have to make it, just because 150 words is really short.
Not very.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
No, it would be great.
Well, really, I mean, really, he hasn't said a thing. What's with him?
Silent.
He's always just yak, 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 yak. Not a word.
Mhm.
None.
Mhm. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. Mine is still in progress, so it might be less than perfectly smooth. Dear Chip Roy, we are a nation in crisis, a domestic crisis, an economic crisis, and a foreign policy crisis. Texans and Texas businesses, including in the district you are paid to represent, are in precarious straits because the state reopened too soon after closing too late. Closing too late. And the latest foreign policy fiasco, the Russia-Taliban agreement to kill US troops, is the latest example of the Trump administration's gross ineptitude and our growing loss of credibility in the international sphere. And as if to deflect all this, you and Donald Trump are still going after China. Trump has never once expressed any regret or emotion about all the deaths caused by the coronavirus, yet he sees fit to tweet about the, quote, ugly face all across the world of the pandemic. And I have to get the tweet here. As I watch the pandemic spread its ugly face across the world, including the tremendous damage it has done to the USA, I become more and more angry at China. People can see it and I can feel it. And you see fit to retweet that. Me too, Mr. President. China harmed us at the outset with misleading/false information, reduced access to PPE, and is taking active steps to harm America constantly. Espionage, intellectual property, fentanyl, cartels, big tech, 5G, games with trade, and so on. And then you see fit to end that tweet with your stupid but offensive Beat China hashtag. Shame on you, Congressman. And all this at 2 a.m. Would that it were our domestic, economic, and foreign policy crises that had you up in the middle of the night. Catherine Wall.
Great letter, Catherine.
Thank you. Not quite finished, but that just pissed me off.
Yeah. I think that would make a good letter to the editor too. If you
I'm like 12 days too short still.
Yeah, I can't submit one either yet.
Yeah.
But okay. You, Mary or George? Either one of y'all want to go next?
I can go if Mary hasn't found her microphone yet. Mine's short too.
Okay.
Dear Representative Roy, I find dozens of instances in your social media accounts where you proclaim your support for our nation's veterans and tout what you say are your efforts to help them. I find exactly one acknowledgement from you of the news that Russia's intelligence agents placed bounties on the heads of American troops in Afghanistan. In response to this unimaginable betrayal of our fighting men and women, you have indicated that you are still waiting for some additional confirmation of what has already been independently verified by numerous intelligence sources. And your idea of an appropriate response is for President Trump to, quote, retract his suggestion that Russia rejoin the G7, unquote. You are constantly calling for law and order and demanding that we, quote, throw bad guys in jail, unquote, for crimes like peaceful protesting. Why then do you think that an attack on our nation's military should be handled by uninviting the attackers to a party? It's obvious, Representative Roy, that you don't really care about our nation's veterans. You're only interested in using them as a cheap soundbite to make yourself look tough and patriotic. You aren't fit to serve as a U.S. congressman, and you are certainly unworthy of the sacrifices our troops have made to keep you and your family safe. Sincerely, Susan Shorn, Austin, Texas.
Great letter, George. That's another candidate for a letter to the editor as well.
Sure is.
Mary, do you have something?
I really don't, except I just have one sentence for Mr. Roy. How many Americans have to die to stroke Trump's ego? People needlessly dying of the coronavirus, people dying because of racial inequities, people dying in detention for immigrants, and to top it all off, soldiers dying because of Trump's bromance with Vladimir Putin. How many of us have to die for him? Question mark. That's really all I've got to say.
That's excellent. Very succinct.
Mhm. I got one short comment, if we can fit it in. Okay, Reprehensible Roy. Well, after reviewing your voting record over the last few days, it's clear that your brief encounter with bipartisanship has well and truly gone. You voted straight along party lines against the following bills, reverting to your usual self. HR 7301, the Emergency Housing Protections and Relief Act. HR 5332, Protecting Your Credit Score Act. HR 1425, State Healthcare Premium Reduction Act. HR 7120, George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. And then HR 51, the Washington, D.C. Admissions Act. In line with your previous callous voting record, you voted against bills that help those in financial or healthcare needs, minorities requiring social justice, and of course, against any attempt to make Washington a state with representation in Congress. Nevertheless, I would appreciate an explanation from you on why you voted the way you did on each one of these bills. Although, since our group is now persona non grata in your district offices, I guess it's not likely that I'm going to get any response. Regards, an engaged constituent in TX21 who refuses to go away.
I like that. Refuse to go away.
Hey, well, that's
We're all persistent.
Yeah, I wrote that one down. I like that too.
Yep.
Okay,
well, are we essentially done?
Well, I have this relatively short one. I guess I could go ahead and read that. Hopefully the quality of it will be better than the first one. Representative Roy, last week under your letterhead, I received an email from Rick Perry, but what surprised me wasn't that he wrote in support of your reelection, that's a given, but that he called you a conservative, quote unquote, warrior. Is that what it's come down to, Representative Roy, that you and your fellow Republicans think of progressives as enemies rather than competitors? That you think of modern Republicans, or what few of them remain in the party, as Republicans in name only or rhinos? That conservative Republicans get primary for not being extremist enough? That you think of yourselves as quote unquote patriots to the exclusion of everyone else? Consequently, it's been eons since Republicans were last able to see common ground with Democrats on a regular basis. And sadly, starting slowly with Ronald Reagan and gradually accelerating with Newt Gingrich, Fox News is now culminating with Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. Republicans have now burdened our nation not only with moral rot, but with prolonged gridlock. Simply put, Republicans have ceased to govern, resulting in critical issues going unaddressed. Healthcare, forget it. Global warming, no. Sensible gun reform, no can do. Racial justice, nothing. Immigration, nada. Infrastructure, are you kidding? That's just a short list. But I have hope for America, Representative Roy, on 2 counts. Number 1, that come November, Americans will reject the depravity, ignorance, and incompetence of Donald Trump and all of his slavish followers like you. And number 2, the modern Republican Party will become so successful in purging itself of moderate impurities that it winds up being a party of nothing but old white folks, present company excluded. So come this fall, I look to see most of those expelled Republicans, Lincoln Project and others, vote Democratic. Representative Roy, the Tea Party, Republican Party reaps what it sows. For your sound defeat on November 3rd, Stephen Shackelford.
Thanks, Steve. Sound was a little cracked, actually. I don't know.
Was that garbled as well?
The last paragraph was good. The rest of it was really hard to hear. Did you
man, I don't
change
know.
something?
I think it's when when you're turning to the side because you're reading. I mean, that was
Oh.
my perception, that when you were facing
That's
forward,
quite possible.
it was clear, it wasn't in and out, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
Okay, yeah.
I'll change it next time.
You're
Well,
using
now
your phone?
I have a message on my thing. Well, this says your speaker is not working. Please check your connection or use a different speaker. Maybe that's it.
Are you using your phone?
No.
No, I'm using
using
a
a-
laptop.
You're using a laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah, something.
I have a quick question. What do you think is the best way to get these